Yesterday I made this low-profile folding bed for my studio, and today I'm building a standing desk to go over top it. This is just going to hold a couple tools, 24 inches or so should do. I'll be sourcing almost 100% of my materials from this broken fence. A tree fell on it a few weeks ago, but a lot of the wood is still decent. The standing desk will be 71 inches. With 2x4s on the end of the frame, the longest piece I'll need will be 68 inches. So this is perfect. The other shattered 2x4 only has maybe 65 inches worth of usable material, so I'll have to splice that one a bit. My car's engine is currently bricked, so I can't go and buy new wood, but I do have my trusty old crowbar in there for breaking up scrap. Lucky for me, this fence was a lot less annoying to disassemble than some of the other wood I find. I think the tree must have loosened the nails for me. Sometimes working with scrap wood like this, you gotta let the material make decisions for you. I wanted roughly a 24-inch tabletop, but 4 pickets was 22 inches, so I decided to just pick the best 4 and go with that. There was understandably a lot of warps and splits in these panels, but I think it'll come out good enough. Back to the old toolbox on wheels, I grabbed my nail pulling kit, 3-pound hammer and a pair of rusty pliers. Heavier hammer really does make a difference on super stuck big old nails. Sometimes I'll pull some of the bigger nails with a crowbar or something, but I find the pliers end up being a lot more versatile when the nails are bent at weird angles. Luckily for me, most of the nails in the pickets were extremely loose. I pulled out a couple by hand even. To clear off the various moss and grime from these, I used my newly restored plane. I still don't have it quite tuned right, but it's more than adequate for this job. I figured the sander would be a lot slower, pushing a lot of the grime in there instead of actually pulling it off, so I knocked down the surface with the plane and then finished it off with the sander. Minor hiccup though, my palm sander appeared to be dead. The buttons didn't do anything. The on and off positions were both stuck down, so I assumed it must be an issue with the switch. Sure enough, when I pulled everything out and contacted it with my keys, I got it to fire. This was a half-off returns table pickup at Harbor Freight, so I wasn't surprised that it died. I just cleaned it out and did some shoddy soldering without even opening it up, stuck a wire in there. Works like a charm. I'll put another switch in there later, but for now I just wanted to get back to work on the desk. It's got no on-off switch anymore, so I just plug it in at the lowest speed and let it do a little dance. I'm just happy my $20 gamble's still working strong after 3 or 4 years. Anyway, after doing some final smoothing on these fence planks, I started cutting everything to length. I ended up deciding to cut that 65-inch piece down to a lot of smaller pieces. It was too warped to be useful at full length, but in shorter segments shouldn't be as bad. I'll just make my second 68-inch piece out of 3 smaller ones. With everything cut to what I think is final size, I started staining everything. Same spooky red wood stain from yesterday. This stuff actually sets less vibrant red and more kind of a muted purple, less luxurious feeling and more otherworldly, which I kinda like. I let all these bake in the sun for a while to make sure they're nicely set before I take them inside. I actually ended up framing it outside as well, first splicing together my second 68-inch piece. Feels nice and sturdy, maybe a touch warped. The basic frame is as simple as ever. I feel like I've been building a lot of these recently. There's definitely some bow to these boards, but that's honestly less of a big deal than twist. I can just slam in some braces in the middle and it mostly straightens out. The pickets from the fence are also warped, but they're thin enough that it's not really a big deal to just tack them down. The braces in the middle of the frame are pretty much essential for keeping these things from bending when working on the surface. It worked pretty well, most of the warp came out, but I noticed I still had a decent ledge over here on the left between the 2 planks. This desk is mostly just to mount a few benchtop tools, so it's not a big deal, but I did want to correct it by adding another brace in the middle. Had to cut it 1.5 inches shorter because of my weird spliced end board, but it ended up fitting in just perfect. I marked out a line where I had added that new brace underneath and threw a few screws in there to correct that little ledge. Much better. The final touch for the work surface of this standing desk is to just trim off all those planks. They were all conveniently about 71, 72 inches, so I trimmed them down to my final 71 once I had them all in place. To smooth out any remaining minor ledges, I hit all the seams with the palm sander. Again, I'm not going for a perfectly flat surface here. That went out the window as soon as I decided to use wood from a fence that got crushed by a tree, but a quick sand does help knock down some of those high spots. Back in the studio, it was time to figure out how to actually mount this thing. It will get fixed to the other standing desk at the same height, so that's a good place to start. I stole one of the legs off of the other one that was going to be in the way. I stuck that spare leg on the back corner of my new surface. Since this will become one big L-shaped desk, it's only going to need 5 or 6 legs instead of 8. On one leg, I put it roughly into place, clamped it down, and stuck the 2 surfaces together. I'm also going to mount this whole thing down to the bed frame underneath. This adds some rigidity to the desk and less wobbling for the bed frame on the hinge. Since I didn't plan out the geometry super well, this connection ended up being kinda shoddy. I had to space over a 2x4's width to get them to line up, but this whole thing is overkill anyway, so it'll be plenty rigid. At this point, all the wobbling is coming from no leg on the front right side. I'm gonna add a bridge over to my other giant workbench instead of a leg. Should be just as structurally sound without having to get in the way of the hinging bed frame. So now this L-shaped desk is connected over to my other giant L-shaped desk. I'm basically just framing up a whole room now. Plenty sturdy though. With my standing desk up, I can put back my sewing machines and move in the long-awaited 3D printer. This was kindly sent to me by a viewer, no name, in the Discord. It's an Ender 3, a nice little budget 3D printer, so I'm very excited to see what I can do with this thing. To finish off, I added a little surge protector. I'll hard mount it later when things are finalized. I also threw in this old fluorescent lamp for some temporary lighting. Could use more light, but it'll do for now. And with that, for the moment, this space is done, or more accurately, it's just starting. At the start of the month, this whole area up against the wall was just kind of a trash heap of random stuff that didn't have a better spot to live, and now it's like this whole area where I can have all my tools. I'm sure, like everything in here, it'll continue to grow and evolve as the use cases change and as I discover how I use these things. You know, maybe this will get a whole overhead treatment like the other desks did, storage up here and everything. The 3D printer has a space now. When I want to use one of the sewing machines, I don't have to clear room for it on the workbench. And my plants have a nice spot to live by the window now. Also, I heard your comments in the last video about drilling holes in the bed platform for better airflow. I'm definitely going to do that. You know, as always, iterative improvements, but I'm loving it so far. On a final note, it's day 31 of October of our daily October challenge. I'm very proud of everybody that's participated and actually posted and made something every day in October. It's been so inspiring and motivating seeing everything that everyone's been making over the month. So many more people participated than I thought would. I'll have a whole separate video sharing my thoughts and takeaways from the month. But congrats to everybody that did it and made it to day 31. I'll have a live stream tomorrow night on the 1st, going through the last round of creations, looking at everything in the Discord. I'm proud to be finishing off the month with 10 main channel videos, so about a third was main channel, a third was streams, and a third was second channel. I've gotten quite a few comments of people saying I'm going to miss these more frequent uploads. Don't get me wrong, I will continue. I'm hoping to keep this momentum going, maybe slowing it down here and there for bigger projects, but expect a lot in November as well. For today, that's all. Happy Halloween, happy last day of October. I will see you tomorrow in a live stream, and thank you for your time.